They called me into the corner office on a Tuesday morning, and I knew my corporate life was about to end. What I didn't know was that my termination email would expose a multi-million-dollar scandal that would bring down half the executive team. My name is Sarah Chen, and this is the story of how being too honest cost me my job but revealed the truth that my company desperately wanted to hide. Welcome to Dismissal Diaries, where we uncover the real stories behind workplace terminations that changed everything. If you're ready to hear what really happens when corporate politics collide with the truth, you're in the right place. Let me take you back to where this all began. It was March 2023, and I had been working as a senior financial analyst at Meridian Corp, a Fortune 500 company headquartered in downtown Chicago. For 3 years, I had climbed the ranks, earned respect from my colleagues, and built a reputation for one thing above all else: brutal honesty. That reputation would ultimately become my downfall, but also my greatest weapon. Meridian Corp wasn't just any company. We were a consulting firm that managed pension funds for over 2 million Americans. Teachers, firefighters, police officers, and countless other public servants trusted us with their retirement money. The weight of that responsibility was something I carried with me every single day as I analyzed investment portfolios, risk assessments, and compliance reports. My direct supervisor was Janet Morrison, a woman in her 50s who had been with the company for over 15 years. Janet was the kind of manager who appreciated straight talk and had always encouraged me to speak up during meetings, even when my observations weren't what people wanted to hear. She used to say, "Sarah, your honesty is what makes you valuable. Never lose that edge." But honesty, as I learned, has a price. It all started during our quarterly board meeting in early March. The boardroom was packed with executives, each one more polished than the last. The mahogany table gleamed under the fluorescent lights, and everyone was dressed in their finest business attire. The agenda was routine: review quarterly performance, discuss upcoming investments, and approve the annual compliance report. I had been working on the compliance analysis for weeks, diving deep into our investment strategies and risk management protocols. What I found made my stomach turn. There were discrepancies in our reporting, investments that didn't align with our stated strategies, and worst of all, evidence that we were charging excessive fees while underperforming the market consistently. When CEO Marcus Blackwood asked for the compliance report, Janet nodded at me. This was my moment. I stood up, my hands slightly trembling as I held my prepared presentation. The room fell silent. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began. After conducting a thorough analysis of our current investment strategies and fee structures, I've identified several areas of concern that require immediate attention. I clicked to my first slide, which showed a comparison between our promised returns and actual performance over the past 5 years. The numbers were damning. We had consistently underperformed the market by an average of 2.3% annually, while charging fees that were 30% higher than industry standards. The room's temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. I could see Blackwood's jaw tighten, and CFO Rebecca Torres shifted uncomfortably in her seat. But I continued. Our current fee structure is extracting approximately $40 million annually in excess fees from our clients' pension funds. Additionally, our investment strategy has been heavily weighted toward high-risk ventures that benefit our subsidiary companies rather than maximizing returns for our pension fund clients. I paused, scanning the room. The silence was deafening. Janet gave me an encouraging nod, so I pressed on. Based on my analysis, I recommend we immediately restructure our fee schedule to align with industry standards, divest from the underperforming higher-risk investments, and implement a more conservative strategy that prioritizes stable returns for our pension fund clients. When I finished, you could have heard a pin drop. Blackwood's face had turned a shade of red I'd never seen before. He cleared his throat and said, "Thank you, Sarah. We'll take your recommendations under advisement." The meeting ended abruptly, and I knew I had crossed a line, but I believed I had done the right thing. These were people's retirement funds we were talking about. Teachers who had worked for 30 years deserved better than to see their pensions drained by excessive fees and poor investment decisions. The next few days were strange. Colleagues who used to chat with me in the hallways suddenly seemed busy whenever I approached. My access to certain databases was mysteriously revoked, supposedly due to system maintenance. Janet seemed stressed and avoided eye contact during our daily check-ins. Then came the meeting that changed everything. On Tuesday morning, March 21st, I received an email from HR asking me to come to conference room C at 10 a.m. The subject line simply read, "Important discussion required." My heart sank. I had been in corporate America long enough to know that HR meetings scheduled with vague subject lines rarely ended well. I knocked on the conference room door at exactly 10 a.m. Inside, I found Janet, HR Director Patricia Walsh, and surprisingly, CEO Blackwood himself. This was bigger than I had anticipated. "Please, have a seat, Sarah," Patricia said, her voice artificially warm. I sat down across from the three of them, my portfolio of work clutched tightly in my hands. Blackwood didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Sarah, we've been reviewing your recent performance and your approach to your role here at Meridian." I felt my pulse quicken. "I believe my performance has been exemplary. My compliance analysis was thorough, and that's exactly what we need to discuss," Patricia interrupted. "Your recent presentation to the board was, frankly, inappropriate and damaging to company morale." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Inappropriate. I was presenting factual data about our investment performance and fee structure. Isn't that exactly what a compliance analysis is supposed to do? Blackwood leaned forward, his eyes cold. "Sarah, what you call factual data, we call a fundamental misunderstanding of our business model and fiduciary responsibilities. Your recommendations would have cost this company millions in revenue and undermined investor confidence." "With respect, sir," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady, "my recommendations would have saved our pension fund clients millions in unnecessary fees and improved their long-term returns. Isn't that our actual fiduciary responsibility?" The room fell silent again. I could see Janet staring at her hands, clearly uncomfortable with the direction this conversation was taking. Patricia pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. "Sarah, we've decided that your approach and attitude are no longer aligned with Meridian's values and objectives. We're terminating your employment, effective immediately." The words hit me like a physical blow. "You're firing me for doing my job. We're terminating your employment due to your failure to work collaboratively within our established framework and your tendency to present information in a manner that's detrimental to company interests," Blackwood said, his voice flat and emotionless. I looked at Janet, hoping for some support, some indication that she would stand up for me. Instead, she finally met my eyes and said quietly, "Sarah, maybe it's for the best. Sometimes being right isn't enough." Those words stung more than anything else. The person who had encouraged my honesty was now essentially telling me that honesty had no place in this company. I was escorted out of the building within an hour. Security watched as I packed my personal items into a cardboard box. 3 years of my life, countless late nights, and genuine dedication to protecting people's retirement funds, all reduced to a box of personal belongings and a severance package. But here's where the story takes a turn that Meridian Corp never saw coming. As part of my termination process, I was required to transfer all my work files to my replacement. This meant I had legitimate access to my work email for 72 hours to ensure a smooth transition. During this time, I decided to organize all my research and findings into a comprehensive report, not just for my replacement, but for my own records. What I discovered during those 72 hours of digging through files, cross-referencing data, and connecting dots was far worse than what I had presented to the board. Hidden in subsidiary company records, I found evidence of a systematic scheme to funnel pension fund investments into higher-risk ventures owned by companies that had direct financial ties to Meridian's executive team. Blackwood himself had a significant stake in 3 of the venture capital firms that were receiving the bulk of our high-growth investments. CFO Rebecca Torres had been manipulating quarterly reports to hide the true performance of these investments, using creative accounting to make losing ventures appear profitable. The fees we were charging weren't just excessive. They were being used to subsidize these personal business ventures of the executive team. Most shocking of all, I found email chains between Blackwood and Torres discussing how to manage the narrative around investment performance and how to minimize scrutiny from overly analytical staff members. One email from Torres to Blackwood, dated just 3 days before my termination, read, "The Chen situation needs to be resolved quickly. Her analysis is too thorough, and she's asking the right questions. Recommend immediate termination before she connects the dots." They had fired me not because I was wrong, but because I was getting too close to the truth. I spent my final night with access to the company email system, compiling everything into a detailed report: bank records, investment performance data, email communications, subsidiary company ownership records, and fee calculation spreadsheets. It was a comprehensive picture of fraud that spanned at least 5 years and involved the theft of approximately $200 million from pension funds. But I faced a dilemma. As a former employee, I was bound by a non-disclosure agreement that prohibited me from sharing proprietary company information. If I leaked this information publicly, I could face serious legal consequences. But if I stayed silent, millions of hardworking Americans would continue to see their retirement funds stolen by corrupt executives. I made a decision that would change everything. Instead of going to the media immediately, I crafted an email that would serve as both my final communication to the company and a strategic move to protect myself legally. I sent it to every employee in the company directory, including all executives, board members, and department heads. The subject line read, "Final Transition Report and Recommendations for Pension Fund Fiduciary Compliance." In the email, I framed everything as a final professional recommendation based on my analysis. I attached my comprehensive report as a reference document for future compliance reviews. By sending it through official company channels and framing it as a professional transition document, I created a gray area in terms of the NDA, while ensuring that the information would reach hundreds of people within the company. The email went out at exactly midnight on Friday, March 24th, my final day of system access. By Monday morning, my inbox was flooded with responses from colleagues who were shocked by what they had read. Several forwarded the email to spouses, friends, and financial advisors. By Tuesday, local financial journalists had gotten hold of copies. Wednesday brought a phone call from the Securities and Exchange Commission. The investigation that followed was swift and devastating for Meridian Corp. The evidence I had compiled provided a roadmap for federal investigators, who uncovered even more fraudulent activities. Within 6 months, Marcus Blackwood was facing federal charges for securities fraud and breach of fiduciary duty. Rebecca Torres had been arrested for embezzlement and conspiracy. The company's stock price plummeted by 70%. Pension fund clients filed a class action lawsuit seeking damages for the stolen funds. The investigation revealed that over $200 million had been misappropriated over 5 years. But the story doesn't end there. In a twist that no one saw coming, Janet Morrison reached out to me 6 months after my termination. She had been cooperating with federal investigators and revealed that she had been documenting suspicious activities for over a year, but was afraid to speak up due to fear of retaliation. "Sarah," she said during our coffee meeting in downtown Chicago, "your email gave me the courage to tell the truth. I had been collecting evidence for months, but I was terrified of ending up like you. When I saw that you were willing to risk everything to protect those pension funds, I knew I had to do the same." Janet's testimony became crucial in the federal case. She had recorded conversations, saved email chains, and documented meetings where executives discussed their fraudulent schemes. Her evidence corroborated everything in my report and provided additional details that led to convictions for multiple executives. The legal battle lasted 2 years. During that time, I faced harassment from Meridian's legal team, who tried to claim that my email violated my NDA and constituted corporate espionage. but federal prosecutors argued that whistleblower protections applied to my case since I was exposing financial crimes that harmed pension fund beneficiaries. Ultimately, the courts sided with me. Not only were the charges against me dropped, but I was awarded a significant sum under the Securities and Exchange Commission's whistleblower program. More importantly, the pension funds were able to recover most of the stolen money through the class action settlement. The personal cost was significant. My reputation in the corporate world was damaged. Potential employers were hesitant to hire someone who had exposed their previous company's fraud, even though I had done the right thing. I faced months of unemployment and financial uncertainty. But I also received something unexpected: dozens of job offers from companies that specifically wanted someone with my integrity and analytical skills. Ethical investment firms, nonprofit organizations, and government agencies all reached out, eager to hire someone who had proven they would prioritize fiduciary responsibility over corporate politics. I eventually accepted a position with the Department of Labor, working specifically on pension fund oversight and compliance. It was a significant pay cut from my corporate salary, but the work was meaningful in a way that my previous job never was. The aftermath of the Meridian scandal sent shockwaves through the pension fund management industry. New regulations were implemented requiring more transparent reporting of investment performance and fee structures. Companies were required to disclose any conflicts of interest involving executive investments. My story became a case study in business ethics courses at universities across the country. I've been invited to speak at conferences about the importance of fiduciary responsibility and the challenges faced by employees who choose to speak truth to power. 3 years later, I can say with certainty that being fired for being too honest was the best thing that ever happened to me, even though it was one of the most difficult experiences of my life. The teachers, firefighters, police officers, and other public servants whose pension funds were protected because of that leaked email deserve to know that their retirement security is being safeguarded by people willing to tell the truth, regardless of the personal cost. Marcus Blackwood was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. Rebecca Torres received 8 years. Several other executives faced lesser sentences and significant financial penalties. Meridian Corp was dissolved, and its assets were used to compensate the defrauded pension funds. But perhaps most importantly, the scandal led to industry-wide reforms that have better protected pension funds across the country. Sometimes being too honest isn't just the right thing to do. It's the only thing to do. My story shows that sometimes the cost of honesty is your job, but the cost of silence can be millions of people's futures. If you found this story compelling and want to hear more real workplace termination stories that changed everything, subscribe to Dismissal Diaries. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Because these are the stories that corporate America doesn't want you to hear, but you absolutely need to know. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes getting fired is just the beginning of finding your true purpose.